What if I told you the Celtics players the Pistons should be targeting are not the ones grabbing headlines, but the ones hiding in plain sight? Detroit fans are desperate for a shift. After yet another soul-crushing season, Pistons leadership is preaching patience. But let's be real. How much longer can they keep selling hope without delivering results? The front office may say they're taking it slow, but around the league, teams are circling, and whispers of Boston's potential fire sale have already begun. And here's where it gets interesting. Everyone's looking at the wrong Celtics. Forget Jrue Holiday. Forget Kristaps Porzingis. These are flashy names, sure, but let's cut through the noise. The Pistons would be buying into declining assets, not foundational pieces for the future. Want the truth? If Detroit wants to make a quietly brilliant move, they should be hunting two other names. One is underappreciated and undervalued. The other, nearly untouchable, but not impossible. Let's break the illusion. Jrue Holiday, a poison pill in disguise. At first glance, Jrue Holiday seems like a dream fit. Championship pedigree, elite defense, leadership. But the deeper you look, the less it makes sense. He's 34. His contract, a $135 million commitment over 4 years. And most damning of all, he's not a natural fit with Cade Cunningham. Holiday thrives in control-heavy systems. But Cade is the system in Detroit. So why would the Pistons invest in a player whose window that doesn't align with their timeline? That's not leadership. That's desperation, disguised as ambition. Kristaps Porzingis, the mirage of low-risk Porzingis, is the name that keeps popping up, especially with just 1 year left on his deal. The logic is tempting. Take a flyer, flip him at the deadline, maybe even catch lightning in a bottle. But let's stop pretending Porzingis is low risk. He's played more than 60 games in a season just once since 2017. His playoff track record, shaky at best. The guy is a walking MRI. You don't stabilize a young, injury-plagued roster by adding a 7'3" gamble with a history of breaking down under pressure. So who should the Pistons be targeting? Derek White, the White Whale. Detroit doesn't know. It needs... Here's where the script flips. Derek White isn't the sexy name on trade boards, but make no mistake, he might be the most impactful player the Pistons could realistically chase. You want defense? White's a top 5 guard defender in the league. You want shooting? He hit 39.6% from deep this season. You want playmaking? He can initiate offense without needing to dominate the ball. More importantly, he fits with Cade, seamlessly, effortlessly. White doesn't need touches to be effective, and when he does get them, he elevates the offense. He's the kind of connector every rebuilding team dreams of. Now yes, it would be very difficult to get him. Boston loves White. They should. But here's the pressure point. If Tatum is out for the year, Boston has to make a decision. Do they run it back with a bloated payroll and limited upside? Or do they shake things up and build around Jaylen Brown and Porzingis, both under contract for the long haul? If that happens, someone becomes expendable. And the math says it might be White. Don't forget, Boston owes future picks and is paying luxury tax penalties. If Detroit comes calling with expiring contracts, draft assets, and a promise to absorb salary, the door might crack open, and the Pistons need to be ready to kick it in. Sam Hauser, the smart bet no one's talking about. Let's shift gears. If White is the long shot, Sam Hauser is the undervalued asset flying completely under the radar. He's not a household name yet, but his profile is exactly what Detroit should be hoarding. Floor spacing wings with size, low usage, and sky-high efficiency. Hauser shot over 41% from 3 on real volume. And no, these weren't garbage-time threes. He knocked down tough shots, deep shots, movement shots, the kind of shots that bend defenses, even when he's not scoring. And here's the kicker. He's cheap. Locked in at around $12 million over 4 years. For a team like the Pistons, that's not just a deal. That's an investment. That's a swing you take hoping the return outpaces the risk by a mile. He didn't see big playoff minutes in Boston, sure, But that's the beauty of this opportunity. He's blocked by bigger names in a loaded rotation. Give him 25-30 minutes in Detroit and we might see a breakout that leaves GMs kicking themselves for sleeping on him. The hidden strategy Boston might use, and how Detroit can exploit it. Here's a wrinkle no one's talking about. The Celtics could welcome the idea of offloading fringe players like Hauser if it helps them retain their top-end talent. Boston is walking a financial tightrope. The new CBA punishes luxury teams in brutal ways. Reduced flexibility, loss of mid-level exceptions, frozen pick movement. If they have to shed $510 million somewhere, guys like Hauser become the sacrifice. And that's where Detroit must pounce. Simone Fontecchio and a second-rounder might not be enough, but attach a bigger expiring or a young project with upside, and suddenly you're offering Boston breathing room without hurting their core. Let's ask the uncomfortable question. Is anyone on the Pistons outside Cade really untouchable? If you can turn Jaden Ivey into Derek White or Sam Hauser, plus future flexibility, is that a gamble worth making? What if I told you that one of the NBA's most dangerous two-way stars might be on the verge of being traded for spare parts? No, this isn't satire. It's a real trade proposal that's making the rounds. And it's not just questionable, it's flat-out insulting. The rumors swirling around Jaylen Brown have officially entered fantasy land. And the most jaw-dropping part? Some analysts think this is the kind of deal Boston might actually consider. The Boston Celtics, battered by Jason Tatum's devastating injury and bounced out of the playoffs earlier than expected, are suddenly the most volatile team in the NBA. Every team in the league smells blood. Front offices are calling, rumors are flying, and Jaylen Brown, fresh off an NBA Finals MVP and the best two-way stretch of his career, is being dangled in theoretical trades that make zero sense for a franchise that still has championship DNA. But it gets wilder. One proposal, buried in a speculative piece from Bleacher Report's Grant Hughes, suggests that Brown, yes, that Jaylen Brown, could be sent to the Orlando Magic in a deal that doesn't even include Franz Wagner or a single unprotected first-round pick. The return? Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, Moritz Wagner, and 2 protected first-rounders. Read that again. Does this sound like the kind of deal a serious franchise entertains for the face of its future? Let's unpack the absurdity. Jaylen Brown, the most underappreciated star in the NBA? Here's what people outside of Boston don't seem to grasp. Jaylen Brown didn't just win a Finals MVP. He did it by locking down Luka Doncic, hitting dagger threes, and carrying the Celtics when the offense stalled. He's not just Tatum's sidekick. He's a superstar in his own right. He became the emotional engine of the team during their title run. He's durable, he's evolved, and he's only 28. So let's ask the uncomfortable question. Why is he even in trade discussions? The answer is complicated, but not entirely irrational. With Tatum's long-term health uncertain, Boston is entering a weird limbo. They're not bad enough to tank, but not good enough to win it all without Tatum. That has opened the door to creative trade proposals. But creative doesn't mean stupid. And this Magic package, it's not creative. It's disrespectful. Jonathan Isaac? Yes, he's a good defender when he's healthy. But that's the catch. When? He hasn't played over 45 games since 2019. He's not a shooter. He's not a creator. He's a specialist with an injury history that makes Porzingis look like an Iron Man Anthony Black, a rookie with upside, sure. But what's his ceiling? Solid starter? Maybe. Maybe not. He averaged 4.6 points per game in limited minutes this season and shot 29% from 3. He's not a cornerstone. He's a flyer. Moritz Wagner? He's fun, but he's a rotation piece. Nothing more. And the 2 first-round picks? Protected. Meaning, if they land too high, Orlando keeps them. Meaning Boston would be betting its second-best player on 2 picks that might not even convey until 2027 or beyond. And even if they do, those picks are coming from a Magic team that's already a playoff squad. What's the upside here? 18th overall. It's not just underwhelming, it's laughable. You want to talk seriously about a Brown to Magic trade? Then the conversation starts with Franz Wagner. a 22-year-old wing who averaged 19.7 points per game, shot efficiently, defends multiple positions, and has all-star upside. That's the bare minimum to even enter the chat. And even then, it's not clear if Boston would bite. Why? Because Brown isn't some fading star or expiring contract. He's locked in, he's ascending, and he's shown he can be the best player on a championship team. Do the Magic have anyone who checks all those boxes? No. So let's not pretend. This is a fair offer situation. If Orlando really wants Brown, they'd need to come with a monster package. Wagner, unprotected picks, maybe even Jet Howard, or more. Anything less is just noise. So why float a trade like this? The answer lies in narrative control. As teams look to poach talent from contenders in chaos, the media becomes a tool to soften public perception, suggest enough times that Brown is available, and fans start to believe it. Leak a few weak offers, and suddenly a decent package. Seems like a steal. But Boston isn't rebuilding. Brad Stevens isn't tanking. This is not Oklahoma City or Utah. The Celtics still expect to contend next season, even if that means playing a patient, calculated game while Tatum recovers. Which brings us to the real question. What do the Celtics actually want right now? They want flexibility, optionality, a roster that can stay competitive, develop young talent, and pounce the moment Tatum is back in uniform. Trading Brown only happens if the return sets up a second window, not just for 2025, but for the next 5 years. The Magic deal doesn't do that. It doesn't do anything.